Bartolomeo Vanzetti, born June 11th, 1888, in Villa Falidio, province of Cuneo, Piedmont region. He left Italy for the United States in 1908, although he did not meet Sacco until the 1917 strike. I don't know what that is. Okay, hold on. Okay, so Bartholomew meets uh, Sacco in 1917 on May 5th. Sacco and Vincetti, two Italian anarchists, anarchists. Oh my gosh. They immigrated together in 1908, but separately. Sacco is a shoemaker, and Bartholomew is like a fish peddler or something like that. Yeah, fish peddler. They were arrested for the crime of murder uh, of a shoemaker. On May 31st, 1921, they were brought to trial of the Massachusetts court. It doesn't really say what crime that these two men committed, except being Italian anarchists. Because I'm reading like 3 to 4 articles, and it never says what they're convicted of. They're just saying like they stood trial for murder. So I'm just like, okay. And it's saying other people's names. Okay, I guess here we go. Rather than accept court appointed counsels, Bartholomew chose to be represented by John P. Vahey, a former foundry superintendent and future state court judge who had been practicing law since 1905, most notably with his brother James H. Vaugh and his law partner, James Graham, who was recommended by supporters who served as defense counsel. Okay, a few weeks earlier, he had given a speech to New American. What? So the judge disliked foreigners, but he was considered fair? Okay. So their trial began June 22nd, 1920. The prosecution presented several witnesses who put Bartholomew at the crime scene. Their descriptions varied, especially with respect to the shape and length of Bartholomew's mustache. Physical evidence included a shotgun shell retrieved at the scene of the crime and several shells founded on Bartholomew when he was arrested. The defense produced 60 witnesses, all Italian from Plymouth, who testified that at the time of the attempted robbery, they had brought eels from Bartholomew for Eastertide. In accordance with their traditions, such details refrained reinforced through an interpreter whose inability to speak the same dialect of Italian as the witnesses hampered his effectiveness. On cross examination, the prosecution found it easy to make the witness appear confused about dates. A boy who testified admitted to rehearsing his testimony. You learned it just like a piece of school. The prosecutor said, "Sure," he replied. The defense tried to rebut the eyewitness with testimony that Bartholomew always wore his mustache in a distinctive long style, but the prosecution rebutted this. That interpreter may have been Italian, but maybe he didn't know how to speak the language. See, you could tell that judge didn't like them. You could tell. The defense case went badly, and Bartholomew did not testify in his own defense. During the trial, he said that his lawyer had opposed putting him on the stand. The same year, the self defense told the governor that Bartholomew had refused his advice to testify. Decades later, a lawyer who assisted with her in defense said that the defense attorney left the choice to Bartholomew, but warned him that if it would be difficult to prevent the prosecution from using cross examination to challenging the credibility of his character based on his political beliefs. He said that Bartholomew chose not to testify after consulting with Sacco, who later joined the defense team. I'm sorry, Herbert B. Amron, who later joined the defense team, wrote many years later that the dangers of putting Bartholomew on the stand were very real. Another legal analyst of the case faulted the defense for not offering more to the jury by letting Bartholomew testify, concluding that by his remaining silent, it left the jury to decide between the eyewitness and the alibi witness without his aid. In these circumstances, the verdict of not guilty would have been very unusual. That analysts claimed that no one could say that the case was closely tried and vigorously fought for the defendant. Bartholomew complained during his sentencing on April 9th, 1927, for the Braintree crimes. That verse sold me for 30 golden money like Judas sold Jesus Christ. Okay, that must be his accent coming because I didn't understand what the hell sold me for 30 golden money. I guess that's how foreigners talk. Having conspired with the prosecution to allegate still more the passion of the juror, the prejudice of the juror towards people of our principles against the foreigner, against slackers. July 5th, 1920, the jury deliberated for 5 hours and returned guilty verdicts on both counts. Armed robbery, first degree murder. Before sentencing, Judge Dyer learned that during deliberations, the jury had tampered with the shotgun shells found on Bartholomew at the time of his arrest to determine if the shot that contained was of significant size to kill a man, since that the prejudice of the jury's verdict on the murder charge. They declared that was a mistrial. On August 16, 1920, he sentenced Bartholomew on the charge of armed robbery to a term of 12 to 15 years maximum. Yo, this man was prejudiced as fuck, but at least he did not give him murder. Bartholomew denounced Dyer. Bartholomew wrote, I will try to see Dyer death before his pronunciation of our sentence, and asked fellow uh, and anarchist for revenge in our names, in the names of our living and dead. In 1927, advocates for Sacco and Vanzetti, sorry, Bartholomew, changed that this case was brought first because a conviction for the Bridgewater crimes would help convict him for the Braintree crimes where evidence against him was weak. The prosecution countered that the timing was driven by the schedules of different courts and handled the cases. The defense raised only minor objections in an appeal that was not accepted. A few years later, Valerie Joy Kisman's law firm. Bartholomew went on trial for Okay, Secco and Bartholomew went on trial for their lives on May 31st, 1921, in Dinner, North County, Massachusetts, for the Braintree robbery and murders. I thought Bartholomew was a wasn't even tried for that murder. Whatever. Bartholomew was represented by brothers Jeremiah and Thomas. Secco was represented by Fred Moore and William J. Collin. The choice of Moore, a former attorney for the industrial workers of the world, provided a key mistake for the defense. And the tourist radical from California more quickly enraged Judge Thayer with his courtroom demeanor, often doffing his jacket. Once his shoes, reporters covering the case were amazed to hear Judge Thayer during a lunch recess proclaim, "I'll show them that no long haired anarchist from California can run this court. And later, you'll wait till I give my charge to the jury. I'll show them." See? Oh, oh, he must not like Italians for nothing. Yo, nothing. Authorities anticipated a possible bomb attack and had a dead ham courtroom outfitted with heavy sliding steel doors, cast iron shutters that were painted to appear wooden. Each day during the trial, the courthouse was placed under heavy police security, and Secco and Bartholomew were escorted to and from the courtroom by armed guards. The Commonwealth relied on evidence that Sacco was absent from his work in a shoe factory on the day of the murders and that the defendants were in the neighborhood of the Braintree robbery murder scene in the morning where it occurred, being identified, also been there separately and also together. That the Buick getaway car was also in the neighborhood and that Bartholomew was near it, and in that Secco was seen near the scene of the murders before it occurred and was also seen to shoot Baradelli after Baradelli fell. Hold on, you guys, my eyes are so bad. That shot caused his death and used shell casings that were left at the scene of the murders, some of which could have been found to have been discharged from a .32 pistol and found on Secco, and a cap was found at the scene of the murders, which witness identified as recently a formerly sworn by Secco. And both men were members of the anarchist cells that espoused violence, including assassination. Among more important witnesses called the persecution was salesman Carlos E. Goodrich, who stated that as the getaway car raced within 20 feet of him, one of the car's occupants, whom he identified as being Secco, pointed a gun in his direction. Much of the trial focused on material evidence, notable bullets, guns, and the cap. Prosecution witnesses testified that the bullet 3, the .32 caliber bullet, had fatally wounded Bartonelli. I don't know how to say these Italian last names. They be always getting me. Was from a discontinued Winchester .32 auto cartridge loading so absolute that the only bullets similar to it that anyone could locate to make comparisons were those found in the cartridges in Secco's pockets. In court, District Attorney Katzman called two forensic gun expert witnesses, Captain Charles Vaughn, School Armory, and Captain William Proder of the Massachusetts State Police, who testified that they believed that the four bullets received from Bartonelli's body, bullet 3, the fatal bullet, examined rifling marks, consist of those found on bullets fired from Secco's .32 Colt automatic pistol. And rebuttal to defense forensic gun experts testified that the bullet 3 did not match any of the bullets from Secco's Colt. I'm confused. Did the bullet come from him or no? After the trial, Captain Proctor signed an affidavit stating that he could not possibly identify Seckle's .32 Colt as the only pistol that could have fired bullet 3. This means that bullet 3 could have been fired from any of the 300,000 .32 Colt automatic pistols then in circulation. All witnesses, oh my God, to the shooting testified that they saw one gunman shoot Bertinelli 4 times. Yet the defense never questioned how only four of the how one of the four bullets found in the deceased guarded was identified as being fired from. See, they don't know not a darn matootie. Okay, let this man walk free. Leave him alone. Bartholomew was being tried under Massachusetts felony murder rule, and the prosecution sought to implicate him in the Braintree robbery for the testimony of several witnesses. One testified that he was a getaway car, and others who stated that they saw Bartholomew in the vicinity of the Braintree factory found at the time of the robbery. No direct evidence tied Bartolomeo .38 nickel-plated Harrington and Richardson 5-shot revolver to the crime scene. Leave this man alone. Expect for the fact that it is identical any type in appearance to one owned by the slain guard Bertinelli, who was missing from the crime scene. All 6 bullets recovered from the victims were .32 caliber from at least 2 different automatic pistols. Prosecution claimed Vincentelli .38 revolver had originally belonged to the slain Bertinelli and it had been taken from his body during the robbery. No one testified to seeing anyone take the gun, but Burnley had an empty holster and no gun on him when he was found. Additionally, witnesses to the payroll shooting had described Bertinelli as reaching for his gun on his hip when he was cut down by pistol fire from the robbers. Brummer also told the police that he had purchased only 1 box of cartridges for the gun. All that same make, yet his revolver was loaded with 5.38 cartridges of varying brands. At the time of his arrest, Bartholomew also claimed that he had bought the gun at a store but could not remember which one and that it cost $18 to $19. He lied about where he had obtained the .38 cartridges found in the revolver. The prosecution traced the history of Bertinelli's .38 Harrington and Richardson revolver. Bertinelli's wife testified that she and her husband dropped off the gun for repair at the Ivor Johnson Co. of Boston a few weeks before the murder. According to the foreman of the Ivor repair shop, Bertinelli's revolver was given to repair tag with the number of 94765 and this number recorded in the repair logbook with the statement H&R revolver 38 caliber new hammer repair in half an hour. Oh goddamn, it's just too much. It's just too much. After hearing testimony from the repair shop, an employee that the repair shop had no record of Bartinelli picking up the gun. The gun was not in the shop nor had it been sold. The defense put Bartholomew on the stand where he testified that he had actually brought the gun several months earlier from fellow anarchist Luigi Falzani for $5. In contraction to what he had told police upon his arrest, he was corroborated by Luigi Falcini, a friend of Bartholomew, a few Galaniist who stated that after buying the .38 revolver from one Ricardo Arciani, he sold it to Bartholomew. The defense also called to expert witness of Mr. Burns and Mr. Fitzgerald, who each testified that no new spring and hammer had ever been installed in the revolver found in Bartholomew's possession. Leave this man alone. Y'all just hate him because he's Italian and he's an immigrant. Ooh, it's just It's like now y'all see what the white people been thinking back then. Ugh. Something to eat. Okay. Okay, y'all. They have a lot of stuff, and my time is running out, so we skipping. The jury ultimately reached a guilty verdict. The verdicts of the likelihood of death sentence immediately arose international opinion. Demonstrations are withheld for 60 Italian cities, and the flood of mail was sent to the American embassy in Paris. Demonstrations followed in a number of Latin American cities. Veteran of the campaign, blah, 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 blah. The 12 jurors were sequestered at the courthouse for an entire 6-week trial. They slept no cost of the courthouse. They slept on cots. The grand jury bathed in the. Yo, they really want to get these motherfuckers for real. They having jurors sleep in the courthouse? Yo, these white people are insane at the time. Oh my gosh. So, um, they were convicted. Okay. And it's just so sad. The executions were scheduled for midnight between August 22nd and 23rd, 1927. On August 15th, um, um, Bartholomew awaited execution in his cell at Charleston State Prison. Uh, Bartholomew refused a priest several times later on in their day, and they're atheists because they're atheists. They didn't believe in Christ. So Bartholomew to make a statement opposing violent retaliation for his death, and they discussed forgiving one's enemy. Thomas also asked Bartholomew to swear to his and Sekel's innocence one last time, and Bartholomew did. Celestial Mendoza was whose execution had been delayed in case his testimony required on another trial of Sekel and Bartholomew was executed first. Sekel was next and walked quietly to the execution electric chair, then shouted, "Farewell, mother." Bartholomew, in his final moments, shook his hands with guards and thanked them for their kind treatment, read a statement proclaiming his innocence, and finally said, "I wish to forgive some people for that they are now doing to me." Following the executions, death masks were made for the men. This is what Bartholomew ate.